In this video, I'll walk through initial finance settings required to set up your business's services and the invoicing and reporting functions of the system. The Finance tab is home to key settings related to taxes, payment processing, invoices, and options required to generate accurate reports. The Finance tab can only be accessed by users with owner or administrator level permission. The Finance tab contains 3 subtabs. Settings, where you will set your currency, payment processing account, if applicable, and define your taxes. Invoices receipts, where you can search through all invoices and receipts. And payments, where you can search for payments and apply batch payments to a series of invoices. Let's start with Finance settings. As with most of the settings screens, you'll notice it's divided into sections. The first section is Finance configuration. Here it's critical to set your currency, which will update the currency icon throughout the client and company display, as well as the notifications and invoices. The company license and tax number, if supplied, will display in every invoice below the invoice number and date. This information may be necessary in some industries if the invoice is to be used as proof for insurance reimbursements. This license and tax number is different from the license and tax number that each service provider would have, which will display at the bottom of the invoice in the appointment summary section, which relates to the service provider who performed the service for the client. Check out our video on managing service providers for more info. In the invoice configuration section, you'll be able to customize your invoice or receipt. The default name of invoice receipt can be changed to suit your needs. It may be more appropriate to call it a receipt if you only intend to supply it to clients after the service has been completed and paid for. We have found that most businesses stick with invoice/receipt as it covers all bases. The promo line displays in every invoice below the appointment summary at the bottom of the page. For example, you can use this space for a thank you message or a link to a sign up for your newsletter. If you collect prepayments, use the prepayment terms section to explain any terms that will then display in the client view appointment booking confirmation screen just before your client is directed to the payment screen. And be sure to set the display option to yes. And remember to apply your changes to save your work. If you intend to use online payments, require prepayments, or a credit card on file for bookings, you will need to connect a Stripe account to enable these features from the payment processing section. Once connected, there will be additional options displayed in the fee section of each service. You can get more information about services by watching our video about managing services. Payment types is a list of the methods or payments you accept. These are displayed in the Payment Types drop-down when applying a payment to an invoice. You may also add your own payment type. For example, you may collect payments from insurers or direct e-transfers. The last 2 sections deal with defining and assigning taxes to your services and products, if applicable. Setting up your taxes is an important initial step in your setup and should be done before any appointments are booked. Failing to do this will cause you a huge headache later. Setting a tax is quite self-explanatory. Click the Define a Tax button and complete the mandatory fields. The abbreviation is what displays in the invoices and reports. Leave valid until blank, as this would only be used if a tax is temporary. Now to assign the tax to services and/or products, choose which taxes apply to each item so that when you create a service or product, that tax will automatically be assigned. If you already created some services, you will need to manually assign the taxes now. Side note here, if you have tax-exempt service providers, there is an option in each person's profile to apply a tax exemption. You can learn more in managing service providers. Well, that's it for the finance settings. I would recommend booking a couple of test appointments in the calendar and check the invoice to be sure the financial details display as expected. Not checking now and figuring out later that you forgot to assign a tax to a service or made a keying error can make for a lot of extra work later. Let's look at an invoice example to see how this all relates. You can view an invoice from many places depending on the task at hand, but most often you'll be managing invoices from appointments, so I'll show you that. From the calendar, select an appointment and open the invoice section. The top part of the invoice displays some basic info like invoice number, date, business license tax number if applicable, and client info, billed to. There are options to email and download the invoice, and a text field to add a note. The items are listed in the next section, along with an option to add other items to the invoice. Each item has an option to apply an adjustment, which could be a discount or markup by amount or percentage. Near the bottom is the appointment summary, which includes the appointment type or the service, the date and time, the service provider, and their license number. These details are required in order for the invoice to be acceptable for insurance providers. Also below that, if applicable, the promo line text you entered in the invoice configuration. And of course, an option to apply a payment. Depending if you have your payment processor connected or not, the options that are displayed here will change. You can view the invoice as your client will see it by choosing the PDF option. Clients can also view their invoices for past appointments from their account My Appointments page. Next, let's look at the Invoices tab. Here you can search through all invoices by a client's name and or by date range. The resulting list can be ordered ascending or descending by any of the columns of data. You can open an invoice by selecting the invoice number or the edit button. This is not the only place to access invoices. You can also search through a client's invoices directly from their profile or any appointment billing search section. If you're looking for something more along the lines of a financial summary that can be exported, the reports generator is a better option. There are many financial reports that can be exported as a PDF or Excel spreadsheet. On the Invoices page, you can also create invoices for sales unrelated to appointments, like a product sale or a service that doesn't require a service provider's time. In these cases, you could still use the invoicing and reporting functions by creating invoices for these transactions. Just create a new invoice, search for or add the client to be charged, add the items, and any adjustments or payments, then save. Once saved, you can email or print the invoice. Next is the payment section. In the payments page, you can search for a payment by a client or by date range. This list can be helpful in reconciling a payment discrepancy or linking a payment with its confirmation ID in Stripe. Here you can also apply a payment to a number of invoices at once using the batch payment option. Start by choosing a client to load all unpaid invoices. Select the invoices to be paid, which will be calculated in the selected invoice section. Set the amount being paid and how, then apply the payment. The page will update and display any remaining invoices if applicable. You can double-check the payments from the payments page or accessing the invoice from the appointment in the admin calendar. That covers it for the finance setup. If you have any questions about finances or other aspects of the system, please reach out to us. We love hearing from you. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video. We look forward to supporting you and your business.